Good evening, Seattle. Hello. How are you? How are you doing? Good to see you. Welcome to what will be a spectacular evening of short presentations. How many of you have been to an Ignite Seattle before? Excellent. And you made it back. How many of you is it your first Ignite? Welcome. I hope you have a good time. For how many of you is this your last Ignite? Yeah, your ticket's only good for so many shows. We understand that. So you're going to see a spectacular evening on unusual presentation formats. We love juxtaposition. We think Seattle's a smart place, and public speaking is often so boring and so terrible, and we're on a mission to save the world from terrible public speaking. Part of our ambition is to challenge you. You will see many different styles, many different ideas. You'll see things that make a lot of sense. You'll see things that don't make a whole lot of sense. It's kind of up to you to figure it out because we think you are smart. We hope you respect us for respecting your intelligence. My name is Scott Birkin. I am your MC for the evening. I am one of several organizers. I am the most visible, but I'm not necessarily the most important. I will tell you more about that in a minute. So the tradition at Ignite Seattle is we start off by explaining how Ignite works to you in an Ignite talk. This is very meta. This is very complicated. I think you can handle it. Are you ready for this? Okay. Actually, I know that you are not ready. So part of my job is to set up our speakers. They are the talent for the evening. My job as MC is to help them do a great job. I have one problem. This is a beautiful room. There's one flaw. Now, if you go to see a U2 concert or run DMC, you can tell how old I am that I'm mentioning these bands. The front row are the most precious seats in the whole place. I am looking at 2 empty rows. This is a travesty. Now, I know many of you are good citizens, but clearly not enough. You need a bribe. If you come up and fill these rows from any seat, you get a drink ticket. Come on up, fill these seats. Fill these seats. Fill these seats. Yes. Yes. I do. Okay. Very. Wow. So, the reputation that Seattle has is that we're coffee addicted. I think we may have other problems here. So I am going to give these to you. Thank you. Justin will pass them out. If you don't get a drink ticket, here, pass these out to the people closest to you, closest to stage. If you didn't get a drink ticket, you can come up to me and complain. I will call you a sucker for being vulnerable to manipulation by a public speaker. Okay. So now that the room has been set up, people in front. By the way, for your bribe, all that I ask, selfie being taken, I should totally photobomb that, but I don't want to waste your time. Part of your requirement is to participate. You guys will be loud. You'll applaud. You'll cheer them on. If you don't, I know where you are. I can come and hit you with the microphone. I don't want it to come to that. Okay. Are you ready for the opening Ignite talk? Okay. So this is Ignite number 29. We've been doing this for 10 years. 10 years. Ignite Seattle started in 2006. We have been in many locations across Seattle. We've been kind of nomadic. We were in Capitol Hill. We were downtown. Now we are here at Town Hall Seattle, which is a beautiful building. It's an amazing theater. Round of applause for Town Hall Seattle, please. This building is 100 years old. If you look around, Seattle's changing really fast. A 100-year-old building is an amazing thing, so please appreciate the building you're in. Now, I said 2006, Ignite started here in Seattle. It's now all over the world. The format's been very popular. There's more than 30 cities that do Ignites at least once a year, and it goes on and on and on. We hope the format continues to be popular. Now, the format, which I should tell you about, each speaker gets 5 minutes. They submit 20 slides. Each slide is on the screen for 15 seconds. It's automated. It's the only format, one of the only formats where your slides can kill you. They don't care what you do on stage. They will keep going. This format, this Ignite format in Seattle, Ignite Seattle, is the largest open submission public speaking event in the Northwest. Anyone can submit a talk. Anybody. It's a rare and special thing. We think everybody has a story that they can possibly tell. Now, because this format is so difficult, it is really very challenging to do this. It's very hard. It takes a lot of work. I need to ask you to be a very supportive audience. Give me like a yeah. All right. If people get confused or stuck, cheer them on, yell, you can do it. We count on you to help the speakers do a great job. There may be things they ask you to do. Please do them. If they screw up or get confused, act like it's what you hope they would do and cheer them along the way. We are a volunteer organization. We're a nonprofit. We don't make any money really from this. We depend on you loving the event so much you tell other people about it. So please, if you're on your phone, you want to get out your phone during the break, tweet about the event. Tell them it was sold out. We sold out Town Hall for the 4th time in a row. We're very proud of that fact. For all of your loser friends who did the Seattle Freeze on you and didn't show up, you can tweet to them or text them and say, watch it online, sucker. See what you missed. It's free as well. It's online. The next event, we do it quarterly. Same place, Thursday, May 26th. You'll be able to buy your tickets, I think, either now or very soon. Get them in advance again because we tend to sell out now. We're very proud of that fact, as I've mentioned once already. The next thing I want to tell you is that, again, it's open submission. 5 minutes. We believe anyone can submit a talk and have a good story to tell. We'll help you do it. If you go to this website right now, you can submit a talk. We get about 60 submissions for every Ignite. We accept 16. That's almost as tough as Harvard. Maybe as easy as, like, I don't know, Western Washington. I don't know. But we have advice on that page that helps you come up with a proposal that's going to make it through. We recommend you read that. We've been doing this for a long time. We, again, are convinced everybody has 5 minutes of material they can tell, a story they can develop. We don't care if you're famous. We don't even care necessarily if you're an expert. We care that you're passionate about something, you have a good story to tell, a lesson to teach us, something you want the world to know about, and you're going to do an interesting or fun job doing it. You will get expert coaching from the organizers and myself on how to do a great job. The format's very simple. 8 talks in a row, 5 minutes each. It's about 45 minutes. There'll be a break. Biology, get more drinks for you guys up front, and that's very important to you. Go to the bathroom if you want. There'll be another set of 8 talks, and then you are done and can go home, and hopefully you'll be inspired. This is a list of all the people who've helped organize the event. You can see how many are involved. A round of applause for all of the organizers and volunteers, please. Thank you. Our sponsor is Techstars, most well known for the famous event Startup Weekend. They do lots of things to help people develop their skills, become entrepreneurs, and become more creative. We're very, very grateful for their support in running this event. It'll be available online very soon. It's done to do an amazing. That is the opening talk at Ignite. So thank you for your not throwing anything at me. I hope I've set the bar low enough or high enough or whatever calibration needed so you can enjoy the rest of our talks. And now, the first Ignite speaker. You are in good hands. He's an Ignite alumni. He's presented this event before very well and had some of the most popular talks we've ever done. His name is Hello Cooperman. I know him because he used to be my boss. I could say something mean about him now, but I won't because he's a wonderful guy. He's going to talk to you about how to talk to your most likely straight teenage son about sex. Please welcome Hello to the stage.
Now, this is not a talk you actually want to have. I don't care how progressive or cool a parent you are. It's uncomfortable. Okay? And remember, this is a highlight of a talk I gave my 13-year-old son that lasted an hour and a half. So these are just highlights. This is not to talk about mechanics either. This is not to talk about intercourse. This is to talk about sex. Okay? The intercourse talk is like when they're 5 or 6. The first thing you got to tell them is that sex is awesome. There are unicorns. There are rainbows. And they shouldn't worry because as distant as it seems in their future, they're going to get effectively an unlimited supply of sex in their lifetime. Most likely to the point where there may be times when there's an offer of sex and they're too tired to have sex. So they shouldn't stress out. You also need to explain to them that whatever their friends are saying to them, their friends are idiots. And on every topic, and especially on this one. They don't know shit about shit. You also need to explain to them, and this is important, that sex is not a competition. There are no awards. You don't level up. And they'll say, well, what is it then? You say, well, sex is this gift from the universe. Sex is this incredible high bandwidth way to communicate with another human being. And it's important because sex is also a creative outlet. You're going to come up with all kinds of ways to have sex, and it's all good. There's no combination of things. Whatever they've thought of, you need to explain to them it's all normal. Someone on the internet has thought of it, has a group about it on Facebook, has stock photography of it. Whatever two things they want to combine that they don't think go together, believe me, someone has combined those things. And when they're bored of those two things being combined, they'll add a third component that you would think doesn't belong, but someone decided that clam juice and tomato juice needed, of course, the addition of Bud Light. There are also some heavier topics to discuss with your most likely straight son. In 1970, Israel was having a crisis of an epidemic of rape across the country. The prime minister was Golda Meir. One of her male cabinet members suggested that they have a curfew on all the women. She said, "Excuse me, it's the men doing the raping. Let's curfew them." When I was growing up, parents told girls not to get raped. They didn't tell their sons not to rape. You should say that. Not just no means no, but enthusiastic, repeated yes is the only thing that means yes. And you have to talk to an adult. It's an adult thing to do. You have to have a trusted adult to talk to. If you can't talk about this adult thing with adult consequences, you can't do it. And as an adult, it's uncomfortable because you're going to ask them, have you ever seen pornography? Which is effectively a rhetorical question because the answer is always yes. And you have to explain to them pornography is like the fast food of sex. They take the salt and the sugar and the fat. And by the way, pornography is fascinating because watching people have sex is fascinating. But it's not a healthy, consistent diet. It also represents not just women, but men in ridiculous ways. You're not a sexual superhero. You can't shoot webs and fly around town, and you won't stick to the walls, maybe a little bit. But the worst part is that, and it's not just much of pornography, not all, and not just much of society, or not all of society, but much, portrays women as sexual objects to be used by men. And this is something that they need to understand. You say to your son, you don't have to worry about getting assaulted. You don't have to worry about getting pregnant. You don't have to worry about raising a child without a father. You don't have to worry about being called a slut. This is a cognitive burden that women carry with them and men need to be conscious of, like a ball and chain, which ironically is another term we use to denigrate women. Women want to have sex just as much as men do. And you say to your son, it's not your job to convince her to have sex with you. It's your job to listen and to say what you want to do and to listen to what she wants to do and to respect each other. And finally, you will want to text or post pictures or videos or VR simulations at some point, and that guy will be watching all of this on the internet, so be careful what you post. And if he isn't, then her parents probably are. And in the very worst case, your father is giving the sex talk he gave you a year ago in front of 1,000 people in town hall, which is posted on YouTube. By the way, right standing there is my now 14-year-old son.
There we go. There's possibly a Guinness Book of World Records that we've set because it's embarrassing enough to get a lecture on sex from your parents, but to get a lecture on sex from a parent in front of 800 people you don't know, it's got to be a record. Someone work on that who's getting bored. Next up is a very different talk, very different direction. There'll be no Spider-Man or He-Man photos in this, I believe. Judy Oldfield is going to talk about how to catch mackerel in Norway. Please a round of applause for Judy.
How to catch mackerel in Norway. Quit your job. This requires time and patience. It holds the unique position of taking a lot of money while also being totally free, so save up a bit before you go. Buy a plane ticket to the west coast of Norway. I recommend Bergen, but Stavanger or Tromsø could work. The west coast, however, is a must. This is fjord country. You can't turn a corner without spotting a fjord. Soak in the fjords. The juxtaposition between earth and sea is never as striking as it is here. Rocky cliff faces rise out of the water with an utter disregard for sand or beach. Wonder what the adjective form of fjord is. Fjordal? Fjordic? Convince someone to take you fishing on their boat. Most coastal Norwegians have one. It's part of the joy and necessity of living on the fjords. As a people, Norwegians are, however, very polite, and asking a stranger for use of their boat is rude. So find a work exchange program, such as WOOF or HelpX, in which you work on a farm a few hours each day for room and board. Mostly you'll chop wood, maybe you'll feed chickens or sheep. After dinner, you'll have coffee with your hosts and talk for hours. Swap travel stories late into the night. Find the similarities and differences between your countries. Try to explain American gun culture and the two-party system. Learn about Norwegian mandatory military service and comedic musicians. Take pride in not just your wood chopping, but your wood stacking. Norwegians are orderly and will appreciate your attention to detail. This wood will dry over the winter, and they'll use it the following winter to supplement their heat. On your days off, go into town. Hit the museums, learn about the Hanseatic trade, about the Vikings, about Edvard Munch. Restaurants are expensive in Norway, but it's okay. Your host packed you a sandwich for lunch. Get invited out onto the water on Friday. First, you must eat dinner because Fridays in Norway are taco night, and nobody wants to miss that, not even for fishing. Don't tell them their tacos are more like burritos. Wonder what authentic means. Let the kids' enthusiasm propel you down the wooden walkway and onto the boat. Speculate on who will catch the most. Hint, it will be the youngest and most diligent of your little fishing crew. Drop a line in the water. This is the easy part. In a matter of minutes, you'll have hit a school of mackerel, and any doubt that you won't manage to catch any fish will drift away down the fjords. Fish some more. Be polite, take turns. Dark and slick, they flop for all they're worth as you haul them up, but their misfortune is your bedtime snack. 7 to 10 is a good number per fisher. Some will be small and not worth saving, but don't worry, you'll have plenty for everyone. Sit next to one of the kids who will delight in the cute way you try to pronounce the Norwegian words he teaches you. Some will come more readily than others. Stjørnas, star, won't roll off the tongue quite as easily as eple, apple. Cook the fish. Slice off the fillets, leaving the skin on and bones in. You don't have to eat the skin, it's just simpler this way. Lightly coat the fillets in a mixture of flour, salt, and pepper. Pan fry in butter a few minutes per side till golden and crispy. Eat the fish right away. It tastes like victory. You'll get seconds because unlike others at this table, this is a treat for you and not a normal Friday night. The next Friday, go crabbing. Learn how to dismantle and eat fresh crab. Consider moving to Norway and buying a boat of your own. Nationalized health care, free universities, stable economy. What's not to love? Except the cold, grueling winters, even darker than Seattle. It's not worth it. Don't move to Norway. Keep traveling. Remember Norway as you travel. Realize that it's not the museums or the famous places that you talk about to other travelers. It is the people. It is those conversations over coffee after dinner. You'll never forget the Norwegian word for star, even if you can't pronounce it. Learn that lesson over and over again. In Turkey, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, Burma, Laos, drink tea with people whose language you do not speak, but invite you to sit with them anyhow. Wave to people as you whiz by on motorbikes. Return home. More than a year later, find yourself back in your house. Take pictures of Ballard, the murals and plaques, and send them to your hosts. You keep in contact through Facebook. Grow itchy. Host couch surfers. But there are still so many places to go and people to meet. There are friendships waiting for you out there, both the ones that last a moment and the ones that last a lifetime. Consider moving to Costa Rica for a while.
Thank you. There's a segue here in a politically active climate. It's a tough, important year politically. The next talk is about surplus, and we think about the United States and economic surplus, political surplus. Comparisons should be made between Norway and America, and our next talk is going to touch on this in a bunch of different ways. Peter Adelsheim is going to talk about by their surplus, you will know them. A round of applause for Peter, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this should be a change of pace. I want to talk to you tonight about an idea, concept, the economic surplus. Now, I know for a lot of you out there, any economics is a surplus. So, what do I mean? The economic surplus this is higher math. The surplus is equal to the pile of stuff, the whole pile of stuff we can produce. You know, if everyone's working and the factories are humming, minus the pile of stuff we must produce. The food, the clothing, the shelter, the societal minimums. And the difference between the big pile of stuff we can produce and hopefully the somewhat smaller pile of stuff we must produce equals the surplus. And the point is this, it's only the surplus we have much choice about. Food, clothing, shelter, got to do it, no choice. The surplus, you can decide, a society can decide what form it should take. And how a society uses the surplus gives you a lot of insight into that society and into its prospects. So, in the next 4 minutes, let's take a quick trip through human history. How did the Stone Age people use the surplus? The hunters and gatherers, people living at the level of subsistence. How did they use the surplus? Well, that's a trick question. If you're living at subsistence, there is no surplus. Did you see any surplus here? The only surplus moving along. The ancient world, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Incas, the Aztecs, how did they use the surplus? Well, the first thing I think of anyway, they used the surplus to build gravestones, grave markers. You know, these aren't temples, they're grave markers. They wanted to leave a permanent marker, and they did a pretty good job of that. They also did build a lot of temples. This is the Temple of Bel in Syria, destroyed last fall by ISIS. And this is the Sun Pyramid in Mexico. But again, moving along. I had a story there. The Middle Ages, feudalism. Think Europe in the year 1000, 1200, like that. How did they use the surplus? There was no central government. Everyone was responsible for their own security. They built a lot of castles. I read recently there's still 10,000 medieval castles you can visit in Europe. They also created a class of permanent professional warriors, and they embarked on a number of ill-advised adventures in the Middle East. How about the modern world? For the first time in history, the economic surplus was used economically. It got plowed back into the economy. What do you think? You know, you think of factories, assembly lines, steel mills. You know, we use the output from the steel mills to build more steel mills. Government got involved. They built a number of amazing public works projects. This is Hoover Dam, without which Los Angeles is impossible. And the interstate highway system, without which you can't get to grandma's at Thanksgiving. How about today? How do we, in the modern world, use the surplus? Well, I think the story is still out on that, but when I look around, I see people buying a lot of designer coffee, designer clothing, designer yachts, Have you gotten the emails encouraging you to rent a private jet for your next vacation? Government gets involved too, building weapon systems nobody wants, and getting involved in a number of ill-advised adventures in the Middle East. Well, that's 400,000 years of human history in 4 minutes. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you. Okay. All right. That was cool. Next up, Mark Teppo is going to talk to you about how to catch an idea and make it yours. Round of applause for Mark, please.
So the last time I was on stage was 6th grade, spelling bee. And like all good 6th graders, I studied these words really hard. And my first word was author. And I spelled it O-U-T-H-E-R. And it's not even a good spelling. I mean, you can't even do anything with this. It wasn't even like O-A-T-H-E-R, which is like, you know, a respectable job description. You know, if you could be an oather, you could go take oaths and leave oaths somewhere and show up at kids' birthday parties and stand in the back of the room and make ill-advised comments when, you know, your son can't hit the pinata well. So I was pretty much, there was no way I was actually going to be an author because I couldn't spell it. So I decided instead to be a writer because there's fewer vowels. And because writers live by ideas. That's all they do all day long. And people ask me, where do you get your ideas? And I try really hard not to laugh at them because, frankly, where don't I get ideas? I mean, I look out the back window and I see a bunch of moles on meth making things in the backyard. I open the kitchen drawer for a spoon and I see 2 ideas banging against each other, making more ideas. I mean, they're constantly like, you know, like rabbits. And even sometimes, you know, ideas show up in really awkward places. And, you know, you don't really ever have a pencil in a shower, and your phone doesn't work. So ideas are everywhere. And the thing about ideas is that, especially for writers, is that we see and dream and live through narrative. Everywhere we go, we see narrative. We see people staring off into space, and we don't see them staring off into space. We see them thinking about what's for lunch, or, hey, what's going on over there, or, look at my, you know, I don't know what the hell he's thinking about. But this gentleman right here, he's thinking to himself, is it 3 over and 4 down for a bleep, or is it 3 over and 4 down for a bloop? And frankly, I'm inventing modern avant-garde electronic music, so what the fuck? Let's just plug it in and see what happens, right? Because that's the thing about ideas, is that you've got to harness them, you've got to catch them, you've got to be grabbing them all the time. And some of them you've got to sit there and look at them and you go, well, this one's too small, I'm going to throw this one back. This one I'm going to keep. Maybe I'll save it and put it up on the mantelpiece, and maybe I'll shave this one and turn it into a hat. And some mittens, they're constantly coming on. And because it's your brain is doing amazing things all the time. It's these little sparks that are happening all the time. And it started back when we were all knuckle draggers, right? And then one of them stood up in the back of the cave one morning and said, hey, I've got an idea. You know, and if Thog hadn't looked at that burning bush and thought, hey, it's kind of warm, I wonder what happens if I touch it, civilization probably wouldn't have happened. You know, and frankly, if Thog hadn't had that same thought the first time he saw a naked woman, civilization probably wouldn't happen either. So anyway, we left the cave, and we started building houses, and we started building castles, and we started building cathedrals. And you move along to a point where, you know, we're in the 17th century, and the Pope looks up at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and says, it's a fabulous ceiling, but you know what it needs? It needs some angels. It needs something up there. And some dude in the back of the room put his hand up and says, I'll see your angels and raise you the book of Genesis, right? And the Pope, being a smart guy, said, all right, let's see what you got. Because that's what makes the difference. That's what leads us through to tomorrow. That's how we get from over there to over there. We ask questions, we wonder, we speculate on what if, and we want to see what the possibilities could be. I mean, last week we recorded gravitational waves, right? Some scientists got a measurement out and said, look, there are 2 black holes colliding. I'm getting a reading. And you know who wasn't surprised by this reading? Albert Einstein, right? 100 years ago, he said, you know what, someday they're going to see gravitational waves, and they're going to pull this note out of my drawer, and I'm going to be right. And it took us a century. It took us a century to catch up with him. But he dared to question the universe. He dared to look forward and say, you know what, I think something's different out there. And that's a lot of the reason why we invented language. I mean, part of it was to leave the cave and go find the river and come back and say, hey, the river's over there, and the mammoths are pooping over there, and the tasty marmots that we like are living over here. But part of it also is that there were things going on in our brain. There were things that were changing, things that were magical, and things that were different, and we wanted to share those with each other. And that's why we create. That's why we're dreamers. That's why we write. That's why I write. That's why I'm a publisher as well, because frankly, if you write, you got to put it down, you got to put it in a book, you got to give it to somebody. And so ultimately what I want to say to everybody, and to terribly paraphrase T.S. Eliot, if you wake up and you say, do I dare, do I dare, the answer is abso-fucking-lutely. Dare to disturb the universe. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a self-evident talk. He dared to get up on stage in front of all of you. Thank you for supporting him and doing that. Our next talk, Shelley Farnham is going to talk to you. She's an Ignite alumni. You're in good hands. She's going to talk to you. Her title of her talk is The Data is In, How to Improve Your Neighborhood. Round of applause for Shelley, please.
Hello, everyone. So I'm a research scientist. I specialize in community technology research and development. In the past year at Third Place Technologies, we've been exploring how can we leverage new technologies such as social media and open data to really quantify and then help improve community well-being. I'm a big believer in the power of community to have a meaningful impact on your quality of life, and the research supports this. Generally, the more you're a member of a vital community, the happier you are. Unfortunately, in urban environments such as Seattle, oddly enough, even though it's more people per square foot, people tend to be less connected. They don't have as many friends. We've all heard of the Seattle freeze, right? It's real. It's hard to connect. Now, community is not just good for happiness. It can actually make the difference, a life or death difference in a crisis situation. This is, I like to think of this as a zombie apocalypse test. Ask yourself this. Do you know enough people in your neighborhood within walking distance that you could band together against a zombie horde and not only beat it back, but actually thrive and recreate society as we know it? So what can you do? Right, probably not, right? So what can you do? What can you do to have these thriving communities that are happy, but also, most importantly, can withstand crisis situations? This is a key question we're exploring at Spoken, at Third Place Technologies, and one of our main projects is Spoken. It's an online civic network with tools to really help you understand how can we improve our neighborhood's well-being. We've done a lot of research went into this, questionnaires, online social media analytics, you name it. We did it in the past several years. And we're actually weeks away from releasing this. And so first of all, I want to recommend you all go check it out. You're going to see how your neighborhood compares to other neighborhoods. Get some good ideas about what you can do to improve your quality of life. But right now, what I want to tell you is just sort of 5 top recommendations for in your neighborhood. What can you do right now to improve your quality of life? The first is to really join the conversation. It's happening already. Conversation's already happening. And a necessary condition for a thriving community is that people know each other and regularly interact. So you'll need to go out there and join those conversations and be really actively engaged. You can do it face-to-face. Face-to-face, it has more impact. But in our urban environments, we often have trouble finding those face-to-face interactions. So this is where you can really leverage social media to compensate for that lack of face-to-face interactions. Where do these conversations happen? They're often in what we call third places. So third place is a place outside of the home and outside of work where you can meet strangers and go from being strangers to friends. They are breeding grounds for community. Most neighborhoods have third places. They have them sort of clustered like this. Find your third places, and if they don't exist already, you need to start making them in your neighborhood. Not too surprisingly, economic success is also really important for the well-being of a neighborhood. So think about that. Think about how can you help the economy, the microeconomy of your neighborhood. Invest locally, hire locally, send all your kids to school. That said, extreme wealth actually does not correlate as highly with community well-being. What we find is that people in these wealthy families tend to be a bit isolated, they're disengaged, not talking to each other, and there are no third places. Another thing that's really so don't move to Medina. I'm trying to say. Another thing is find the community hub. So these are people in your neighborhood that everyone trusts. They have all the keys. They started a blog. They've got your mailing, there's a mailing list. They are the keepers of the local lore. Find them. They're doing a lot of the community networking for you. Take advantage of them. And if there isn't one in your neighborhood, become the community hub. And there's a lot of great role models out there that you can take advantage of. I can tell you all about later. Another important thing is diversity. Diversity is a double-edged sword. Diversity can be great as you bring together different perspectives. You can be more creative and more effective problem solving. But it can also create a lot of distrust, a lot of tension. The key difference is that your community is inclusive, that people feel like their voice matters. And so it's important to signify, to celebrate diversity and signify in some way that you value or it's important in your neighborhood. So think about it in terms of festivals, your role models in your news media, and your art. Art can be a very important cultural signifier that can inspire a feeling of belonging. Finally, I want to emphasize that your fear of strangers is probably the thing that is the most threat to the well-being of your community. It's as if everyone already believes that we are already a zombie horde. I promise you, we're all human. You can trust each other, mostly. I promise you also that if you can find something in common with your neighbors to connect around, for example, that you're in the same neighborhood, then you can really radically improve your community well-being.
So a little secret to share with you is us organizers think of Ignite, the events we put on, as an interstitial third place, that you're all sharing an experience together tonight. And so a little trick to help you not fall into some of the things that Shelley was talking about, an obvious entry point to having a conversation with a stranger while you're waiting in the bathroom line or you're waiting in the drink line, all of you with drink tickets, this is a good one for you, is just simply to say, hey, which talk did you like the most so far? Or, if you're more like me, I'm a cynical former New Yorker, which talk sucked the most? All valid forms of entry into conversation, and you'll have a different perspective on the experience you've had so far. Maybe you'll make a friend or an Ignite buddy that you'll see, hopefully, at a future Ignite. So put that in your little hat for things to do this evening. Next up is Jacob Fleischer, who's going to talk to you about something you may think you know a lot about called coffee. Please welcome Jacob to the stage.
Thank you. I had no idea how terrifying this was going to be. But However, I am heartened by the fact that you are all naked. I'm a researcher and a designer, and I've even worked on some vessels that hold coffee. So I want to talk about the coffee experience that I've seen and all the blather that I've heard about coffee, all the stuff. And so my thesis statement is that there is so much bullshit around coffee. Everybody knows this. It's self-evident. There are very few things that are important about coffee. There's a lot of bullshit around it. So I'd like to talk about the 4 things that are important, and I won't talk about all the bullshit that's unimportant, because then it wouldn't be a 5-minute talk. So I put together a handy little framework to help us out here. The 4 things are all in parallel. They're in parallel importance. And then there's some inconsequential stuff down at the bottom. Now I'm going to fill those things in kind of magically as the timing of the slide goes. Really, really important up top. Ratio, if I get it right, roast, grind, ratio, and temperature. And down at the bottom, method, not important, and variety, also not important. So the roast, dark, of course. What else would it be? It has to be dark roast. Shiny, oily, lovely, so gorgeous like that. Yeah, so right and wrong. Grind, no matter what it tells you in the instructions, just do it finer than what it tells you. you unlock all that extra surface area that the water can envelop and then kind of get the loveliness out of the coffee. Ratio, also important to grind, just like quadruple it. You can always add more hot water, but if you have a weak cup, you got to start from the scratch again. That's what happens. Now, temperature, I don't really care where you brew it, but how many cups of coffee have I got in my hand right from the barista, and they're tepid? Come on, please. Can we just, heat everything up along the way, please? Now, so method, I talked about this earlier. This is unimportant, be it stovetop espresso maker, the Mr. Coffee, the French press, the globe, the drip, the filter. It's not important. You follow the other things, okay? And variety, also not important. This may be an unpopular opinion, I know. I'll be around later. You can assault me if you like. So that's not important. And I'd just like to say, in conclusion, a couple of little thoughts. Bitterness. I'm trying to keep it not bitter for you, and I'm pouring it correctly. It's coffee's all about the bitter. That's the beauty of coffee. Please, bitter. I like the bitter. The bitter's the good. Then the other thing is pollutants. Thanks. I guess I don't have to say anything about that. That's awesome. You're so great to me. Thank you. I have to give some props to Harry Frankfurt. He would have noticed the misspelling of epilogue, certainly, as he is a PhD at Princeton. And he wrote a wonderful essay called On Bullshit, so that gave me the inspiration to title my talk similarly to his. And that's really it. Please invite me for coffee or give me a shout, and I will invite you for coffee, and I'll show you how I like to make it, and I will scorn you if you make yours the way that I don't like it. And that's really about it. I just kind of I cheated in the end and had 4 of the same slides. So
Great job, Jake. Great job. Whenever you have an opening talk about sex, it kind of plants a seed in your mind. I think Jacob was a little turned on about coffee, giving his talk. And I have to confess, I kind of was too. Another thing to talk about during the break, about how strange the MC was. All right. Next up, we're going to go in an entirely different direction now, at a different velocity and pace. Franziska Seeger is going to talk. Listen to this title. This is one of my favorite titles from this Ignite. Molecular Machines and Designer Drugs. Please welcome her to the stage. Have fun.
Thanks. Proteins are amazing, and I'm here to talk to you about what an important role they play in your lives. Proteins are nutritious, and some of you might argue delicious, but I'm not here to give you nutrition advice. I'm here to talk to you about the little machines in your bodies that keep you alive and well. Proteins are not visible to the naked eye, but while they're vanishingly small, they perform hugely important tasks for us, such as convert your food into energy or help us move our bodies. Myosin is our muscle protein. Each myosin molecule performs this small contractive force. It takes about 2 trillion myosin molecules to exert the force to hold up a tiny baseball. Luckily, we have 10 times as many myosin molecules in our biceps, so we can do these awesome yoga handstands. I'll show you some of my other favorite protein examples. Take hemoglobin, for instance. Hemoglobin is the truck driver of your blood oxygen. It tightly binds oxygen in your lungs and ever so slightly changes its shape when it lets go of it when it reaches your tissues. Pretty awesome, right? Another one of my favorite examples is rhodopsin. Rhodopsin allows you to see light. Rhodopsin consists of an even tinier molecule called retinol, which slightly changes its shape from this bent form to an extended form, which then signals to your brain for further processing. Alcohol dehydrogenase is the hardest working enzyme in the first 2 rows here. It converts your alcohol into food and allows you to listen to the next talks while enjoying your adult beverage. Proteins are great when they work. However, they are also the cause of almost all human diseases. Proteins are encoded for by our DNA blueprint. Changes in our DNA blueprint and environmental factors sometimes lead our proteins to break, which makes us sick. Since proteins are so hugely important for our well-being, they're also the target of almost all pharmacological drugs. Some drugs target our own proteins, such as ibuprofen, which inhibits pain sensation and inflammation, and I'm sure you've all taken before. Other drugs, like antibiotics and antivirals, target bacterial and viral proteins of pathogens that we would prefer not to hang out in our bodies. Since proteins are so hugely important to our well-being, scientists study proteins' three-dimensional structure, which confers they function, in order to better understand how they work in healthy individuals and how they break when we get sick, to make better and more effective medicines. Historically, unfortunately, finding and identifying new medicines has been more like finding a needle in a haystack. Researchers simply threw all the chemicals they had on the shelf at the problem and were hoping for something to have the desired effect. With advances in science, however, we were able to make more effective custom drugs with understanding the molecular mechanisms of disease. Take Alzheimer's disease, for instance. In Alzheimer's disease, proteins that are usually beautifully structured and functioning clump together to form these large white patches in your brain, which inhibits cognitive function. Another good example is breast cancer. In subtypes of breast cancer, or some types of breast cancer have too much of a surface protein called HER2, which leads your cancers to divide like crazy. With an improved understanding about the mechanistic details of what happens when we get sick, we can make better, specialized, custom designer drugs of the future. Researchers are currently trialing protein therapeutics to clear your brain of these large white patches in Alzheimer's disease to restore cognitive function. And the FDA has already approved protein therapeutics that block the HER2 surface protein of some breast cancers to prevent your cancer from multiplying like crazy. Other advances in anti-cancer therapies are using the surface proteins of your own immune cells to specifically recognize your personal type of cancer. If you think this is awesome, it gets even better. Some researchers in academia and industry are working on computer programs to not only model protein disease targets, but also design highly specialized, effective designer drugs of the future. My name is Francisca, and I'm a protein engineer. If you want to find out more, check out these websites, follow me on Twitter, or find me after the show. Thank you.
Great job. Very good. Okay. How you folks doing? Still awake? Still feeling good? People in the corner, give me a wave. Yeah? We're on the home stretch. Stretch out your arms, get some blood flowing. 5 minutes to go before your next opportunity for biology things, drinks, bathrooms, all that good stuff. On the home stretch. Our next talk, speaking of stretches, is going to challenge you philosophically. Dana Buckley is going to talk about the taboo of death. Please welcome her to the stage. Danny.
Hi, my name is Danny, and I am addicted to uncomfortable conversations, especially those ones that are considered taboo or off limits. And that is mostly because I believe those are the most important conversations that we should be having as a society, the ones that we're avoiding most. And that does include death, of course, because not only do we fear death, but we avoid talking and even thinking about it at all costs. You see, I've had a lot of death in my life, but it wasn't until a regular old Sunday morning about 1.5 years ago that I got one of those dreaded phone calls. My mom called to tell me that my dad had passed away unexpectedly. And while that was absolutely heartbreaking for me and my family, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. Because that's the one thing we can all agree on about death, is that it really, really sucks. But instead, I want to share with you some of the lessons that I believe my dad has been able to teach me about death through his death and after his death. So thanks, Dad. And my hope today is to inspire all of you to start talking about death. I know it's not the best conversation to bring up, but it's an important conversation that we're just not having. And hopefully you can get a little courage and it'll help you understand death and deal with it a little more by talking about it more. We can't talk about death without talking about grief. So what is grief? Is it a state of being that will eventually fade away with time? Or is it maybe an action like crying? Well, I personally believe that it's a lifelong club that none of us want to be a part of, but we're all going to be eventually. And while it's very universal, it's also incredibly personal and unique. It depends on the person, the day, or even the hour, how we feel about death. So why is it that we all approach and say things to people who are grieving, almost always the same thing? We say things like, he's in a better place now, or gets easier with time, or my favorite, everything happens for a reason. Well, holy shit, I don't know about you, but none of those things make me feel better when I'm grieving the loss of somebody that I love and I will never see again. But that's what we do, right? That's the human reaction, is to fix it, is to make it better, is to find that silver lining. But there is no silver lining in death. I wish people would have said, Danny, there are no words, but I'm here to listen. Or tell me about your dad. What was he like? The thing is, we should be asking those kind of questions and having these types of conversations, not only days and months after somebody passes, but years, because there is no expiration date on grief. So that's why when you have conversations with people you love, don't just talk, So when people are in those immense moments of sorrow, what do we really need? What is it that we really want? We want to be heard. We want to be understood, or at least that's what I wanted. That was my experience. I wanted someone to be present with me in my grief. Another lesson I learned is the importance of not only writing down your final wishes, but sharing those with the people you love. And the key here is both, not one or the other. Having those discussions openly will help avoid potential conflict. And we all know this, right? Duh. How many of us have actually done it? How many of us have written these things down and talked about them? I know for us, we didn't know what my dad wanted. We knew he wanted to be cremated, and that was about it. So we had to kind of follow our heart. And I decided right then and there that funerals are for the living. And we had to make decisions based on the conversations we never had with him, and I wish we had. So what do? We booked a ballroom at the local Howard Johnson because we knew that a funeral home or a church was not right for my dad. It was complete with hundreds of photos, classic rock music, blue jeans and flip-flops, and it was perfect. We told lots of stories, we cried a lot, and yes, we even laughed. That was another important lesson. It's okay to laugh during grief. It's okay to laugh during these uncomfortable conversations. It can sometimes be the best reaction we have. I passionately believe that the more we're able to talk about death openly, honestly, and directly, not only with people we know and love, but even with strangers, the freer we'll be and the more prepared we'll be to handle it. And I'm not just talking about what do you want to happen after you die or at your funeral, but think about questions like, what was your first funeral experience like and how do you think that affected you? Or what scares you most about death? Or how about things like, what do you hope everyone says about you at your funeral or in your obituary? And then, of course, what do you think really happens after you die? This is why I've started facilitating conversations like this in a safe environment with workshops, because I really believe that death and many other topics are being avoided and not addressed enough. And I hope that everybody can maybe see the beauty in that. And my one wish for all of you today is to find the courage within you to dive headfirst into those conversations, because I know that what you'll find on the other side will be so worth it.
That was fantastic. Thank you. Okay. I have 3 things for you before the break. So number 1, inspired by her talk, which I thought was fantastic. Number 1, I gave you a couple of things you can use to talk to each other, building on Shelley's talk. Hey, what talk did you like? Hey, what talk sucked? You have a 3rd option. Hey, how do you feel about death? She opened the door for you, which I think was part of the spirit of her talk. Thing number 2, you have 25 minutes for the break. Come back up, we'll get started. 3rd thing before you go is we are fond of interactive activities during the break. So if you're interested in STEM education, and if you are, you know what STEM stands for, because I can't always remember all 4. I'm not going to try. In between the 2 lines for the 2 bars is a little hallway. There's a demonstration about STEM that you should check out. I will see you all in 25 minutes. If you are a speaker in the second half, please come up to the stage right now. Thank you. How are you, sir? I know.